what I want to talk about is the nature of these events and what creates them, what is behind them, because the candle factory collapse that happened during this tornado that ripped through 6 states in the United States. This event actually happened, but in a lot of these stories, there's real world aspects to it, but then there's the fake aspect to it. And so for example, 9/11, it was staged. It actually happened though, but the stories and the people and the people who are interviewed and everything that is built around it is all part of the show. It's all staged. So the same goes for this. Same goes for a lot of the other staged coded events. There's enough in there to show you that it is not organic. It is not real in this sense. And this is what I think is going on with these events and the movies and a lot of the codes that are embedded in everything. And I think it's connected to synchronicities as well. Basically, the tarot play is being enacted in the physical. In order to see codes, some things have to not be coded. Some things have to be real in order for you to see the fake. If you look at movies like Back to the Future, there's no way that was consciously put together. And a lot of people are saying that it was predicting 9/11. It wasn't. Back to the Future was embedding codes that is about 9/11 because everything here is about 9/11. There's only one story, and every movie tells the same story. So all of these stories is all pointing you towards 9/11 because that's the only story here. I've said before, there's only one story. It's your story, and that story is Jesus's story. It's 9/11, raising the Cristo soil, because that is your purpose here. Every story is a branch or fractal of this story, but even within that fractal, it's the same story. So there's no getting away from it. I mean, I have decoded news stories and movies from like a year and a half now, and they're all the same. Every single one of them points to the leavening, which is what we're going through right now. And the leavening is about raising the Cristo soil and healing your chakras and getting the hell out of here, because that's the only story there is. So one of the issues that arises when examining these events and these stories is how much of it is manufactured and how much of it is part of the system. Because the more you look at this, the more you realize that this is not something that could be manufactured. And I think it's both. I think there's quite a bit of it that is manufactured to make it look like it is staged. And that's to hide the supernatural element to it. But this is a cover. But it's also a clue. It's a clue for you to look a little closer. But if you don't look close enough, you'll get caught up in that level of deception. And going back to this candle factory, for example, I mean, the codes in this, again, point to the 911, the raising of the Cristo soil, the collapsing of the chakras into the heart center, and, getting out of here. So for this candle factory, for example, the speed with which they put this story together to make the most of this natural event is quite astounding. Either they had the story ready to go, and when it happened, they show up with their crisis actors and they do their thing, or they knew when this was going to happen. Now, this candle factory event, most of the people they interviewed were people who had started working there just a couple of weeks beforehand. I suspect that there wasn't anybody actually working in the factory, that they were all part of the show. The people they claim died, there aren't any people who died. It's all a story. It's all a show. A big mistake that we make is reverting to the physical and thinking that everything is physical. And so we reject the idea of the supernatural and how that has a factor in what is being presented to us. And it is possible that the people who are involved in these events, these crisis actors, are extensions of the program or the system, and they are acting this out because that's their role here, but they aren't real people. And this is very difficult for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, because we look at things as if these people are real people. They have conscience, they have lives, they're physical beings like you and I, but they're not. We sort of chalk it up to them being Freemasons, and I'm sure that a lot of these people are connected to Freemasonry. And however, I think that a lot of these people are just part of the show. If you want to look at it like you have chosen to be a witness to a movie, and instead of being in the audience, you are in the screen. You are one of the actors or the background performers, and you are witness to the movie within the movie. That's probably the best way to explain what's going on here, is that we are in a movie and we are witness to the movie, and then there's a handful of real people who are witness to this movie, not realizing that the movie is playing all around them and the story has to play out. And so there's characters here that are just playing out the movie. And this is on every level, because you have to be able to create a story that's believable with main characters and background performers and atmosphere. And so we just sort of chalk it up to crisis actors and Masons. And I'm starting to think that a lot of these Masons are NPCs and extensions of the system, extensions of the program, and that's how we understand it, as they are Masons. They're the builders. They're the ones who build the story. There's a huge supernatural element to this that either is deliberately being buried, but I think it's more to do with our consciousness is burying it and hiding it through explaining how it's done physically as opposed to supernaturally, because we believe this place is real, but it's not. Just random simple things like celebrities dying on certain days and certain numbers and certain ages, and certain things happen to certain people with that are all coded, and those people, their lives are coded according to the story, and they're here to play out that role for the story. And yes, we are too, but I still think that you can't identify a code or deception or real versus fake without the contrast. So it can't all be coded, it can't all be fake. There has to be something real here. So there are stories that are not coded, but because we go through and decode a lot of these events, it appears like they're all coded, but they're not. Real people got hurt in this tornado. Real people went through devastation in this event, and yet they chose to focus on this candle factory and, blow it all out of proportion and make a big deal out of it because there's a story that they need to convey. If they were conveying a real person's story, there'd be nothing in it. And I've seen real stories versus coded stories, and there's nothing in the real stories. There's no coding in it. If you listen to a lot of these stories of real people who happen to be in the area at the time, most of the time they will say things like, I normally go to work that way, but something made me go this way. I normally go to work at this time, but I got delayed. I normally would have been there, but something caused me to not be there. If I hadn't have been over here, I would have been there because I was supposed to be there at this time. Over and over again, we hear stories of people saying this, which I think is part of the system pulling these people away from these events. So you have like 9/11, Beirut bombing, Toronto van incident, Las Vegas shooting, these sorts of things. They mix it in with real people because this is part of the movie playing out. And we're here to experience the movie. But those people aren't supposed to get hurt in these events. So they're diverted. Consciousness tells them, you're not supposed to be here, so you're going to go over here, or you're going to be delayed, or we're going to trip you up so that you don't go over there. And they're not going to be able to see it properly, or participate in it, or get hurt in it. How do the crisis actors participate in these events, like, Las Vegas shooting, or, any of these events? How do they participate in them and not leak the truth? Well, if they're not real people and they think that what they're saying is true, then there's no need for them to leak the truth, because they're just doing what they're here to do. To wrap your head around the fact that they're not real people is shocking. But look at the one video I did called Lies, Lies, Lies. There was one woman who played 5 different characters. And she hasn't come out and said, hey, I'm this woman and this woman and this woman. I did all these stories. I'm a professional crisis actor. But also in the Toronto van incident, they used dummies. The illness footage, they used dummies. The more I look at this, the more it seems like there's an aspect of physical with dummies and crisis actors and staged events. And then there's the supernatural that also happens with some of these codes and the subtext and how that comes out if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. It's very easy to forget that this place is not real, and we get sort of stuck in this concept of things being physical and needing a physical explanation for things. And that's why we manifest the physical explanation for how things happen. And I think that perhaps because we are awakening, we're starting to see the supernatural explanation more so than the physical explanation is. So the physical explanation is appearing more and more to us as fake. Our minds are such that we need to try to make sense of things. We tell stories to ourselves. We explain things through stories because this place is a story, a torus. Some time ago, I did a video on the Beirut bombing, and one of my long-term subscribers got upset with me because he was from Beirut, and I said that the event was partly staged, partly CGI, and because he was from there, he didn't believe it and got mad at me and unsubscribed. And I wasn't saying that to be hurtful or disrespectful or anything. I was saying that because that's what I saw, and that's what it was. Same as with 9/11. And if you can't see that, it's not my fault for pointing it out. And yet, people got upset. I don't blame you for getting upset. This place is upsetting and the truth hurts. And it's unfortunate that people don't want to see these sorts of things. The Beirut bombing, for example, was a staged CGI event. That doesn't mean that it wasn't an explosion. It just wasn't organic. It was staged. It was deliberate. It's part of the show. It's part of the movie. And all of the little snippets of events, like the wedding that happened and video footage of the people who were close by at the time, was all pre-recorded and fake. One such possible solution is that these pre-recorded, fake, manufactured aspects of these events are not actually produced by people. They just manifest as a result of this system. Why do they look so fake? Well, they look so fake because they have to look fake. The point is that it's supposed to look fake so that it wakes you up because you're in a movie and it's not real. So just want to clarify that I do think that everything here is coded because everything stems from the zodiac and everything is encoded with the truth. However, the way that these coded messages or these coded events take place, and it's not just on television, it's in your own life as well. Messages that stand out in your own life, synchronicities. These events It's almost as if the universe manufactures them or brings them to the surface by overlapping the fabric of reality to present them to you, to emphasize them to you. Wayne Dyer once said that when you want to manifest something, that you allow for the cooperative components of the universe to bring it together for you. And I think that's a very good way of describing how this comes together. It's that the universe brings together the cooperative components in order to manifest or raise awareness of these coded events. And the synchronicities play out and emphasize this folded fabric of reality. And that can come in multiple forms of overlapping timelines, if that's how you understand it, such as when I was editing these videos and faces and stories overlap, and the exact music or the exact image or the exact footage was presented to me, whether it was made a day before or 20 years ago. It was as if time fell apart and everything that I needed was created in the moment that I needed it, because there is only now. But we have this illusion of time, space, this illusion that things are fragmented out in time and space. It's like there's 3 layers of this duality play. There's the underlying code that's written in the stars. We are formed from the stars to play our part here. We act out the play based on the code, the script, the zodiac, the tarot play. And these events on the world stage are presented to us to show us the truth. And they play out in the duality of the red versus the blue, the battle of the opposites. And so it must look fake to wake us up and yet still look real enough in order to create the illusion of reality. And underneath all of that is a 3rd layer, which is Venus, which is love, kind of laughing and saying, don't take it too seriously because it's just a movie. So that underneath all of this, you can feel the love in it. You can see the love in it. You can see that this world is merely a projection of what the world would look like or the world would be like without true love. Because this whole world is a presentation of true love, the absence of true love, so that we can return home. In a way, it's part physical, part metaphysical, part physical, part spiritual or supernatural. But all of it is supernatural. Everything is supernatural. It's only because we forgot our true nature that we perceive things to be physical at all. None of it is physical. And so I think that what we're witnessing here is the departure from perceiving things as physical. And therefore the physical side of things is starting to look farcical. It's starting to look nonsensical. It's looking like a puppet show, which it is. It is a puppet show. And the more that we gravitate towards understanding the true nature of this place and gravitate towards understanding that things are supernatural and not real, and it's all a presentation of true love, it's all a presentation from the mind, absent of the heart, then we begin to understand that this isn't real. This isn't home. This isn't where we're supposed to be. This isn't how life is supposed to be. And so the more we gravitate towards that, the more the show appears to us like a farce. Because it is. And it's meant to be. Only we took it too seriously. We took it too literally. We took it to be physical. We took it to be real. And it isn't. And so the codes are in everything. But when Source, Venus, Sophia, wants to send us a message, she will manipulate the fabric of reality and fold it over to emphasize certain messages, emphasize certain words or symbols or images, in order to present to us the story that needs to be communicated to us in a way that we can receive it. And this is what synchronicities are. And this is what the tarot play is. Really, like everything here is a consciousness creation. And so the more you awaken, it's bound to fall apart because everything here is subject to perception. and this candle factory collapse, the one-story building collapsed onto itself, is indicative of telling us that the story is collapsing on itself. The story, the one story that has been fractalized into multiple stories, my story, your story, their story, the play, the tarot play, all the aspects of the various stories that we have been telling ourselves through this consciousness creation are collapsing into itself, into the singularity, because there's only one story. One of the things that I'm getting a sense of right now is that things are sort of collapsing in on each other or morphing into one. I don't believe in a multiverse. I don't believe in parallel timelines. I don't believe in any of that. Parallel timelines, everything is here, everything is now, everything's happening now. You can look at like your past lives as a parallel timeline perhaps, but it happened in the past. Things are separated by time and space here. And you have to look at things in a sense that things are real and not real. Things are separated by time and space here. You can't just say time does not exist. If you say time does not exist and space does not exist, you don't exist, nothing exists, but you are here. So how can you say it doesn't exist if you're here and experiencing it? You are experiencing it, therefore it exists. It is an illusion. Something being an illusion is different from not existing. The parallel universe is my universe versus your universe. You are the center of your universe, therefore my universe is parallel to yours. Your personal experience is parallel to my personal experience. It's happening simultaneously. And past lives is like a way of explaining parallel timelines perhaps, but is more like a remembering of who you are. And if you are remembering who you are in terms of your past lives, but also your other lives, say for example, even within the span of your own life, it feels like there are multiple lives within your own life. And you can look back on your teenage life or your childhood and you're not there anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. It happened, but it's like it was a different version of you. It was a different life. And you look at your teenage life or your life in your 20s or 30s, your life is completely different now than it was then. And if you look back then, you probably were very different in terms of how you behaved or what you thought or how you lived, what you looked like. And I have looked back on my own life and thought I've lived multiple lives within this one lifetime. So if you sort of expand that out and say, well, I can look at my past lives as very similar in the sense that those past lives it's just like looking at my life in my 20s. It happened, but I can't go back there. It doesn't exist anymore. It's like that part of me has died because I'm not that person anymore. And it doesn't feel tangible. It doesn't feel like something I can go back to or possess or connect with. And the only thing that separates you from your past lives is death. And death would be an illusion. I mean, it's all an illusion, but death is also an illusion because you are constant. So what I'm trying to get at is if you look at all of those past lives collapsing in on each other in terms of you coming to remember who you really are, and this universe collapsing in on itself because all of the various aspects of you are coming together in remembering before we wake up, then all of this is going to disappear because it's all collapsed in on itself, which is why they put this story of the candle factory collapse, because we live in the candle factory. Candle is to do with the light within. And when you collapse the rainbow bridge with like your chakras, all your chakras light up, all your chakras are healed, and you collapse the rainbow bridge into heart center. It's the same thing that's going to manifest in the physical. All of the diversity of all your past lives or past existences or everything that you created in your mind in this fictitious reality is going to collapse in on itself and become whole and become one, and this illusion will disappear. And I'm starting to see those threads happening in a lot of these stories and a lot of like synchronicities. And I think that's what it is. I think it's just a matter of everything is just, we're seeing the connections to everything, and everything is one story, and it's all your story. It's all 911. It's all Jesus' story, and it's all revealing itself because it all started with the one story, and now it has to go back. It has to fold in on itself. It has to collapse into the singularity, into the point of creation, and then it will disappear or create a new